Social justice. It's the effect of systemic progress. It's not about this moment, it's about every moment. It's not about immediate change, it's about constant momentum. Saybrook University has been doing the work since 1971, educating inquisitive, informed, and inspired leaders to change the world for the better. Learn more at saybrook.edu. Social justice. It's the effect of systemic progress. It's not about this moment, it's about every moment. It's not about immediate change, it's about constant momentum. Saybrook University has been doing the work since 1971, educating inquisitive, informed, and inspired leaders to change the world for the better. Learn more at saybrook.edu.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. What's going on, everybody? Happy weekend. Hopefully, everybody's weekend got off to a fantastic start, and hopefully you're all enjoying your Saturday. Today, we're going to talk more about the financials of Jeffrey Epstein and the institutions that helped provide him with the ability to keep this criminal enterprise rolling for decades. We've been talking about Deutsche Bank for a while and how they were a very integral part in Jeffrey Epstein's wealth and his moving of money and his ability to keep the machine well-oiled and running. Now, our update last night was talking about how Deutsche Bank just got blasted with another $100 million fine, $100 million plus. And to them, it's nothing, right? It's just money. It's just a couple of more zeros in the ledger. So they'll pay those fines happily. Because how much money do you think they've brought in from all of the douchebaggery? I guarantee you it's more than they're paying out in fines. So why would they stop? What would be the motivation for them to stop? If there's no repercussions, and the only thing that ever happens is that the shop gets fined, then why would the people who are behind these plans and these plots ever stop doing it? You see, it's not the institution itself, right? It's the people behind the scenes that are working at places like Deutsche Bank. And when I say that, I don't mean, front of the line workers, people at your local banking office. I'm talking about the people in the wealth finance division, the wealth management division. The people that were passing out the hot IPOs to Jeffrey Epstein so he could turn and burn them. Those are the people I'm talking about. Those are the people that need to be held responsible for this shit, but they never are. And to tell you the truth, I don't know if they ever will be. We go from one administration to the next, and every single administration is populated with these scumbags from finance. Every last one. So why would anyone believe that things are ever going to change, that things are ever going to be different? Because remember, as much bullshit as these politicians like to talk about how they're going to change things and how they're for the people, they're still accepting donations from these scumbag banksters. Over $158,000 in donations that we know about that Epstein ponied up to the Democrats, about $30,000 to the Republicans. And these are the people that we're going to count on, that we're going to rely on to change these laws and make sure that their bankster friends go to prison. Now, I know that the anti-money laundering legislation that was put into the NDAA is a good start, but there's loopholes and there's outs there. It's not a full encompassing law where there's no wiggle room. And you see it every single time that these people write these new laws. They always leave a little back door, don't they? It's like a computer programmer who writes a program. They like to leave a little back door for them to access. That's the same thing with these politicians and their scumbag bagmen. And make no mistake, all of these banksters that we're talking about, all of these banks, they're all funding these politicians around the world in one way or the other with an obscene amount of money. And all the while, they're using the relationships that they build via their donations and their support to get around laws and to make sure that they don't have to pay any penalties if they do happen to screw up and get caught. They make sure that it's only the institution that pays. And I'll tell you, I've had enough. There needs to be consequences for these executives, these division chiefs, and the rest of these scumbags that are involved in pilfering and stealing money on a regular basis. All this does is hurt the poorest amongst us, the working poor. All of this money laundering, all of this grifting. And then these people have the audacity to act like they care about you. It's such a damn joke. And these bankers are at the heart of all of it, in my opinion. The financial sector is absolutely corrupt. And when you're dealing with the type of money and the amount of money that we're talking about here, it doesn't shock me, because we know that money can corrupt even the best people amongst us. And these politicians who their lifeblood is this money, right? How are they ever going to win their elections without all of this dirty-ass money that comes pouring in? So the politicians get along and go along, and, you know, their aides talk to lobbyists, and then the lobbyists tell the aides what they want, then the aides go and talk to the congressman or the senator, then the senators write the law. It's such a bullshit game, and I'm pretty tired of it, to be honest with you. All of them, every last one of them, all of them that were up there crying crocodile tears the other day, all of them that get up there and talk about how they care about the people, it's all bullshit. And the sooner everybody wakes up and realizes that it's all bullshit, the sooner we can focus on bringing people to justice like these absolute scumbag banksters. Our article today is from Bloomberg.com. Headline: Deutsche, JP Morgan, top banks flagged in fraud report. This article is from September 21st of 2020. This article was authored by Scylla Brush. The global financial industry is under the spotlight again after a cache of leaked documents show years of transactions handled by the world's largest banks linked to money laundering, corruption, and fraud. So we're talking about the FinCEN files again, obviously, here. But this is a overview on some of the bigger players that were caught up inside of the FinCEN files. All institutions and entities that we've discussed already. But considering the new fine on Deutsche Bank, I thought that it would be a good idea to go back, pull this one out of the archive, and do a little bit of context. Because this is an important part of the story, in my opinion. This is a very important part. And if we're going to see real justice, this is an avenue that has to be pursued. And you can see how important it is by Denise George and her subpoena situation down there. How many people she subpoenaed, how many of these banking institutions she subpoenaed. Because this is a big part of the story, folks. A big part of the story. And as you all know, I've been going hard and heavy on the financials, and I plan to continue to do so, because I think we're at the point in this case where it's crucial that we discuss what went on behind the scenes and who was bankrolling all of this. The report, dubbed the Finson Files, released by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists and based on leaked documents obtained by BuzzFeed News, said that in some cases, the banks kept moving illicit funds after receiving warnings from U.S. officials. Here are some of the key facts and figures. And yeah, they've been doing it forever. How long has Deutsche Bank been under the spotlight? How long has Deutsche Bank been involved with with these scumbags? Forever. Ever and ever and ever. And all the while, they're still slapping regular people around the world with a 25% finance rate for a car. Or a 19% finance rate for a credit card. So not only are they stealing when it comes to their money laundering and their nonsense, but they're also catching it on the back end, on the backside, as they shit on you once again with the finance rates. And it goes on and on and on again. So basically, you're just getting screwed in a constant cycle by the banks. Doesn't that feel good? Aren't you happy about that? Aren't you glad everybody has so much focused rage at their neighbors and their friends and people on TV? Meanwhile, these MFs are sitting around right now as we speak on their yacht, yakking it up, loving it, that everybody's at each other's throats, that their bank accounts are growing, that the largest transfer of wealth up in human history is occurring. But don't let me get in the way of you hating your neighbor or anything. How much money is involved? Banks moved more than $2 trillion in transfers that their own compliance officers flagged as suspicious in around 2,100 filings with the U.S. Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, or FinCEN. The documents mainly cover payments from 2011 to 2017. The filings analyzed represent just 0.2% of more than 12 million suspicious activity reports filed over that time. Think about that for a minute. Only 0.2% of the 12 million SARs that were filed were represented here. And it's over $2 trillion in transfers that their own compliance officers flagged. Can you imagine the true level of greed here, of financial crimes? $2 trillion, huh? In a 6-year period. I wonder what a full audit would expose. I wonder how many trillions have been pilfered from shareholders, from citizens throughout the years at Deutsche Bank. My guess is a lot. How else are they going to supply loans to some of these scuzzbag people that they have supplied loans to? How else are they going to supply loans to someone like Donald Trump, who has had 87 bankruptcies, and just go on in their business and no worries? It's because they have so much disgustingly dark money stacked up that they don't care who they're doing business with. Because for all of these years, they were able to get away with it. There was no repercussions. And now, hopefully, people are starting to wake up to the fact that if the money situation isn't correct, if the money situation isn't regulated, then we're all screwed. That's how important it is to stop this bullshit with these scuzzbag financial institutions that are in bed with some of the sickest, most criminal amongst us. Who's named? Almost 90 financial institutions appear in the world in the documents, including many of the world's biggest banks. Deutsche Bank AG handled about 1.3 trillion of the suspicious transactions. Think about that, $1.3 trillion. That's $400 billion more than the fiscal stimulus package that was just passed by the United States Congress. And think about how much money that is and where all of that money's going. That's enough money that you could do all this stuff that Congress wants to do. Unemployment for $300 more. Think about that. And all of that occurred on $400 billion less than what these people processed in suspicious transactions. It is an astronomical amount of money. JP Morgan Chase & Company processed $514 billion, Standard Chartered plc $166 billion, and Bank of New York Mellon Corp $64 billion. At HSBC Holdings plc, it was $4.5 billion. Other institutions named include Barclays, Societe Generale SA, State Street Corp, Commerce Bank AG, and China Investment Corp. Oh, Barclays, huh? Shocking. Do you want to refresh my memory about who the boss is over at Barclays? Oh yeah, that's right. Scumbag himself, Jess Staley. Shocking that they're involved in this as well. All of these institutions should be fully audited, and they should really have to face some serious consequences. All of these people that are involved, all of these CEOs, CFOs, COOs, division chiefs, all of these people know what's up. They all know what their clients are doing, and they look the other way. And in fact, not only just look the other way, they actively participate sometimes in hiding this money and making sure that the money laundering goes off without a hitch. Hundreds of millions of dollars of Russian and Ukrainian money passed through ING Bank Śląski SA, Poland's Gazeta Wyborcza newspaper wrote on Sunday. Funds were wired through the unit to tax havens such as Cyprus until at least 2016. And that's what they do, right? They use these tax havens, they use them as intermediaries, they wire the money there, then the money's bundled and shipped off. And nobody knows where it went. Nobody can find it, and nobody can track it, because all of these scumbags are working together to make sure that occurs. The ICIJ report noted that JP Morgan moved more than $1 billion for the fugitive financier behind Malaysia's 1MDB scandal based on records. The bank also processed payments for Paul Manafort, the former campaign manager for President Donald Trump, after he resigned from the campaign amid money laundering and corruption allegations from his work with a pro-Russian political party in Ukraine, according to the investigation. So Paul Manafort is the epitome of a scumbag, the epitome of a piece of garbage who knows how to manipulate the financial markets and has the connections to do so. I mean, how many times are we going to have to see JP Morgan involved with this shit before somebody says, all right, time to do a full audit. Let's go in there with the SEC, the FBI, let's raid them, and let's figure out what the hell's going on. But they won't do that. I wonder how many people from JP Morgan are working in 46's administration. How many people from Deutsche Bank or Citibank? What's at issue? Banks are required to file suspicious activity reports, or SARs, with the U.S. government within 30 or 60 days of learning of a questionable transaction. The reports aren't necessarily indicative of criminal conduct or other wrongdoing, but reflect compliance officers' concerns. And we've discussed this at length as well here on the podcast. It's not just compliance officers, right? It's the people on the front line who are putting these SARs in. And then the compliance team takes a look at them and figures it out. But the people on the front line need to be trained better. And when they put in a SAR, that their superiors and those who are above them should take it seriously. But a lot of times these SARs are just put into the system and then they're lost in the sauce. Nobody ever goes and looks at them or anything like that. Fines levied against HSBC and Standard Chartered in 2012 spurred a spike in suspicious activity reports, from about 60,000 that year to more than 2 million annually in recent years. Authorities follow up with banks on about 4% of reports, according to a 2018 survey of the biggest lenders in the U.S. So, out of 2 million in recent years, 4% of those are looked at by authorities. So, that's just a small portion, right? 96% of the SARs that are filed are never even looked at by the authorities. Banks' response. Lenders have stressed that the leaked reports show their screening and monitoring systems are working as intended. We report suspicious activity to the government so that the law enforcement can combat financial crime, JP Morgan said in a statement. We have played a leadership role in anti-money laundering reform that will modernize how the government and law enforcement combat money laundering, terrorism, financing, and other financial crimes. JP Morgan is saying that. That's like Ted Bundy saying that he has helped out with some new serial killer laws. He has some new crimes on the books that deal with killing women. Basically the same thing. Who the hell is going to let JP Morgan be involved with any sort of fixing of anything? You're one of the main reasons things are screwed up. Talk about letting the wolf into the henhouse. The issues have already been investigated and led to regulatory resolutions in which the bank's cooperation and remediation was publicly recognized, according to Deutsche Bank. Yeah, not so much, because fast forward a few months and you just got slapped with another $100 million plus fine. So you're not doing things right, obviously. You're screwing everything up, and you people eventually are going to be held responsible. The citizens around the world are fed the F up. And these banks are really playing a dangerous game. Market impact. HSBC shares reached a 25-year low on Monday. Standard Chartered fell 5% in London trading, while Barclays and Deutsche Bank shares declined more than 8% as investors digested the report and also worried about tighter virus restrictions. Yeah, that's definitely not the kind of report you want, right, as an investor. Certainly not. I know if that was the report I was getting, I'd be freaking out. I would be pulling every dollar out of these institutions and moving it elsewhere. Still, some analysts said the report's lasting impact on the sector may be relatively muted, of course, because at the end of the day, money makes things go. And all of these powerful so-called elites, they're all getting rich on this money laundering. They're all getting a taste and wetting their beak. A fair amount of what these files reveal covers known issues, said Joseph Dickerson, an analyst at Jefferies. It is too early to make a call on what the outcome of publishing this will be, but it's hard to see how this data can be construed as new news to banking regulators. It is therefore hard to see direct material financial consequences for banks such as Standard Chartered and HSBC at this time. And that, my friends, is part of the problem. There needs to be consequences. There needs to be an earth-shattering moment when one of these people are sent to prison so the rest of their colleagues understand the stakes, so that they understand that they're money laundering, they're stealing, their financing of the world's scummiest people will no longer be allowed. And when that day comes and one of these people are sent to prison for their crimes, it will send shockwaves through the whole entire financial community that some pissant fine would never be able to accomplish. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links that go with this episode can be found in the description box. All right, everybody, I'll be back later on, and we will pick up where we left off. Enjoy your Saturday, folks.
Is eating fish healthy? Certainly not for the fish, and most definitely not for the oceans. That's the reason the Sarno brothers, founding chefs at Good Catch Foods, began perfecting 100% plant-based seafood. They wanted sustainable options that are respectful of all creatures and don't harm our oceans. Ask your grocer for Good Catch foods like tuna and crab cakes, or shop online at goodcatchfoods.com. Then, host your own Fishless Friday and feel good about every bite.
Rogue Nicotine on demand, delivered direct to your door. Available in all your favorite flavors and formats: pouches, gum, wintergreen, peppermint, and more. From your Monday morning coffee to watching hoops to dinner at the in-laws, Rogue Nicotine is there for you when you need it. Visit roguenicotine.com today and save 10% when you place your order for sugar-free, fast-acting Rogue Nicotine. Underage sales prohibited. This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. For more information, visit roguenicotine.com.